Hello, friends! Welcome to another week of How I Built My Maker Biz. And today's episode is going to be really special because I'm going to be announcing the launch of my new branding workbook that I am collabing with Naomi of Minny and Naomi Goff Design to put together for you. And we'll be announcing the winners of the giveaway, so I'm super excited. And we're going to be focusing on branding today. So I think I saw Naomi. And Arya's here too. Say hello. See, look, she just woke up from a nap. Hey!
Hi!
Yay!
Am I working? Yay!
How's it
Good.
going?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Oh my gosh. I need to this is so exciting. I gotta sorry.
It's
Gotta
happening.
remember to I know. And I wanna see that I say hi to everyone on here too. So I'll be trying to look at comments this time.
Yeah, totally. I know. I always kind of forget, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't answered these questions yet.
Yep. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself in your own words?
Yes. Okay. A lot of you already know me. Some of you might not. I'm Naomi of Minny and Naomi Goff Design. Obviously, like what we're talking about tonight, I'll probably relate more to Minny, my maker business. I'm from Minnesota. That's what Minny stands for. I love design. I love coffee. I love adventure. And that's like a lot of what goes into my brand. And that's what we're going to be kind of diving into. Yeah, just that's kind of a little bit about me. I'm trying to think of, yeah, geez. Okay, so I'm coming up on 5 years of Minny. This is my 5th winter. I had to look back and make sure, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. It's actually nice to go into a season where I'm not creating a ton for a big business and just focusing on online orders. So I'm super excited about that and just super pumped to talk about all of this. Congratulations, by the way, on your workbook. This is just so exciting.
Thank you. No, I'm so excited to work together, and
I know.
Great. But I can't believe it's only been 5 years for you because I feel like you've done so much. And I was telling Naomi this the other day. We're on the phone, and your business was one of the first maker businesses that I found and followed because of Pinterest, which I thought was super cool. But yeah, you are so inspired.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's so cool because you know what? I didn't pin a ton, but that's the one cool thing about the Shopify website platform. Do you use Shopify?
I have Squarespace.
Okay. So Shopify actually has a feature where it just pins your products automatically. But then now, it's like you do with your blog posts, you want to create your own content or upload your own photos to Pinterest. And that's we'll get into more of that, but that's just cool that you found me on there. And, I love it.
Yeah.
To be. And then look, 5 years later, we're working together.
I know. It's so amazing.
It's so fun.
So, before we get deep into the branding stuff, talk to us a little bit about your background in design and branding, and then how the Minny side of things came to be.
Yes. So I went to school for retail merchandising, and so my schooling was kind of in fashion and business. And so I had a little bit of design experience through that. And then I decided that I kind of wanted to run with that. I worked for a couple small businesses doing design. I worked with actually Chrissy Yamaguchi's clothing line. She's my cousin's wife.
No way.
That was where it actually took off a lot more, where I knew that I could make my own business with design, just helping other people. And I didn't necessarily only want to help makers, because I've helped a lot of different types of businesses. But now, after even just working with you, I'm more inspired to niche down and kind of help makers more, because I know there's so many people that have so many small businesses and they just don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. And like, it seems so overwhelming. But if you work with a designer, you know, you don't have to invest a ton of money. If you invest a little bit at the beginning, everything else moving forward is going to be so much easier. And that's, you know, just going back to your workbook, that's why I love it, because you are basically making my job easier. So I'm going to like force my clients to get your workbook. I'm just kidding. But like, honestly, that it's cool because I just love that you're not even in branding and design, yet you've created this brand because you had a passion for it, and then you're making a tool for other people. It's just awesome. Like, I can't get over the workbook. I really can't.
Thank you.
So
No,
good.
I don't even know
Yeah.
how I got into it so much, but I have no background in branding or design. I have a science background actually, which is the
That's,
opposite.
I
But
love
once I
it.
started the biz, it was like, for some reason, that was something I started gravitating towards. You know, and I have a few books that I've purchased for myself on branding and, you know, listened
Yep.
to webinars and blah, 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 and
Yep.
just became obsessed. And then, you know, played around with Canva a bunch and
Yeah. But
it's
that's so
here.
cool. And that's what, but really, like, the work that you put into the workbook, it's just so detailed and it just makes it so easy for people. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for people to see it. And that's like, so many people come to me and they don't know their why, or they don't know like the little details about their business. And just to tell you guys, you don't need like 20 pages of information about your business. You could have one page on a Word document about all the little things, starting with like your mission and your purpose and your product and just those little things. And you can create a website off of just super simple details, really. So it always seems more overwhelming, but I just think when you do the work, you do the research, you actually sit down and try and focus and just think about it a little bit deeper, it can, you know, turn into something awesome. So,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that's the hard part, right? It's like digging deep and actually
Yep.
articulating what your why is, what,
Yep.
you know, who you are. You know, it's like the question, who am I, is sometimes the hardest. So I don't
Exactly.
know. Part of me, I guess, when I was writing the book, especially after having done a couple of lives, it
Yeah.
was like, how can it's almost written like a mini course in a way,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh, it
step by
totally.
step, like start here. Okay, next is this,
Yes.
whatever. But hopefully, I don't know.
But I like,
I'm really
yeah.
excited that you approve of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I love how you have the tidbits about like, what do you love as a person? Like for me, it's coffee, it's exercise, it's healthy food, it's being outside, it's photography, it's, you know, all those little things. That's what makes me unique. And those are the stories that I want to keep telling. And so that kind of gets us into one of our topics is like, what are the stories you tell? And I know we're going to dig a lot deeper and we only have so much time, but like, I'm still working on mastering that myself and like figuring out like, what are my stories? Well, I had a crazy year. I just lost like 60 pounds.
You did?
Yes. So
What?
like that that is now going to be what I work into my brand, because that's something like super relatable. You got to have things that like it, you know, it doesn't have to be crazy, but I didn't know that would happen. So like all of a sudden that wasn't a part of my brand and now it will be, because it's a story to tell. It's something that so many people can relate to. So that's just something that like I think you have to think about is like, what are the five stories that you're telling, or who are you talking to with those stories? Those are your customers. That's who you want to speak to when you come up with captions, when you come up with your verbiage on your website, just all of those things. But that
Yeah.
kind of went on.
No, I mean, even as a product, right? Even if we're literally just talking about hats or whatever,
Yes.
but especially as handmade sellers, like makers, basically,
Yeah.
if having those stories and like the personal touches or like a little side anecdote about, oh, I love Lord of the Rings or whatever, it's like
Yeah, like you're.
it humanizes you in a way that people
Yes.
don't get from businesses or big businesses. And if the business,
Yep.
like a big business, does it well, then you do feel that connection to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And that's why it's all about branding and not just being a business that sells a product. And I think that's what, there's so many makers out there, especially like I know we have a lot of makers on here, and like, why is your hat more special than the person that's posting after you? And that's like the question we always ask ourselves. But really, you guys, you're selling as a person and a human, and you're trying to connect with people. People are buying because of you. They know that you made it. They want to support your life and they know that it comes from the heart. Your hat is, it could be very similar to someone else's, and it probably is, but that's why like you have to set yourself apart through your stories that you tell and just who you are as a person.
100%.
That's really like, I just think like I always go back to your workbook. You have, and you have like now 6,000 followers.
Yeah, it was crazy to me.
Yeah, this has been a big week for you, but it's like, I just call you a micro influencer. And you don't have to have thousands of followers, you guys. You can scroll back to the beginning of both of our feeds. I remember having 300 followers, and I was like, oh, nice. Like, this is great. And that's totally good. Like, you have to start somewhere. You can go back to my feed. I have a totally different editing style. I was definitely trying to go with something, but I knew it wasn't quite working. And then it just kind of worked itself out where I figured out my aesthetic of my feed. And I keep the old stuff there so you can see like where I started. You can see that it's totally different, but it was what it was. I had like, 20 likes on a picture, and that was fine. Half of them were probably my family and close friends. And that's where it starts, but it just takes a couple people to like buy your product. And you guys, I launched on a website with one style of a beanie in 5 colors. That's it. No tags, no tags.
And your stuff was awesome.
That's the thing though. And it's like, but I did have my logo. And I think that's like one thing that kind of made me, that's one thing that separated me was my logo. And like, I had a few adventurous photos, and I kind of had an idea that I wanted to tie adventure into this. And like, I didn't have it all figured out either. That's the thing. And like, so don't feel like you have to have every little thing perfect before you even start or before you post. Like, you will figure it out as you go. But things like Shireen's workbook are what's going to set you apart and let you go further and faster. Oh, hi there.
I'm sitting on my computer.
Oh my God.
Well, she's here.
So cute. She wants to join. But yes. And so, yeah, my kind of just going back to like from design to Made in Minny, my why is just like inspiring other people to get outside, and like all the things about like a handmade product and how cool that is to just have this unique product that no one else has, or very few people have, and something that's going to last. But then on the other side of it, it's just inspiring other people. And I'll tell you one thing, 20s are a crazy time, since I started my business in my mid 20s and now I'm at my late 20s, and it's like everything goes up and down, but that's the one thing that stayed constant, and it's just so cool. Like, whatever you do, whatever your craft is, it can kind of be like a therapy, and it can be like something that you kind of cling to during all the ups and downs. So that's
Absolutely.
just, yeah, exactly. And I know I'm looking over here at my notes. You guys kind of commented in on Shireen's post about like your struggles. So I don't know if you want to ask me like some of like what their struggles were or whatever. I have a ton of notes and ideas and things that I think will help them. So
Yes.
I
Well,
know there's like 20 directions to go.
so many things. Sorry, I'm like struggling with Aria right now.
No, you're good.
Dog mom problems.
That's awesome. Start small, grow along the way. Yes. Sorry. I had to read a couple comments.
Yes. Well, and I think that's exactly it. And that's something we've talked about a lot in addition to just, everyone starts somewhere and it took a while to get here in the first place. But I think branding, especially, it's something that will continue to change and grow as we go, even from here.
Yeah.
And I say even because it's like, it feels like I feel confident and whatever, but I know that things are going to change probably in the next 3 months even.
Yep.
And like the last 6 months were different than, the current ones and whatever. So I don't know. I think it's just, you don't want to stop yourself from going for it because you feel like you need to have everything ready to go and perfect. It's like what you're saying. You launched with one beanie style.
Yep.
It's like when you do it, that's where you're going to learn the most.
That's where you're going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. I was sick of just telling people like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. It's like, just do it. Just go out there and do it because you can keep talking about it for so long. And, I just feel like it's more exciting when you just throw it out there and say, look what I created. Mm-hmm. And just say, here's where you can buy it. That's like so much better than like hyping this thing up. Like, yes, it's cool to hype up a launch and have a plan, but sometimes there just isn't a plan. And sometimes it's like way more exciting to just be like, here's this awesome thing. Here's what I created. And here's where you can purchase it. This is why I did it. This is, why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think people are likely to respond to that in a positive way,
Yeah, no, like absolutely, because it's like, it again humanizes you and makes it so that you are putting yourself out there and you'll learn from putting your stuff out there too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I feel like I used to do that more where I'm just reading a couple comments. Like I used to talk more about stuff before I had a plan. And so now I like, as a business owner, you do have to set dates for yourself. It's just like in school, we had projects with deadlines. You have to give yourself like, okay, by September 1st, I am launching my products. So that means I have to get all my photography done. I have to get pictures done. You got to set those timelines. Otherwise, it probably won't happen or you'll give yourself too much wiggle room, So I've definitely learned like setting actual dates for deadlines. I have a big calendar that I do on like on Artist Pad that I do the months of the year. I just make it myself and I just put how many like little boxes for social media posts for my design account, because that's kind of what I'm trying to stay more accountable with, is just doing like 5 posts a month and just making sure I get that done. And then the big dates of what has to get done. So for Made in Minny or whatever. So just saying like, okay, September 15th is my product launch. So then that date is just out there, and I know that there's all these things to do before then. If you don't set dates, it's hard. But then also going back to like hyping it up and talking about it, I think there's a certain way to do it. And you don't want to keep saying like, this super exciting thing is coming, but then you just don't really have something to show for it, or it gets delayed, because that happens a lot. Where like you start hyping it up too soon and you didn't have it ready. So I don't know, just kind of thinking about timing of that and actually like following through with giving yourself deadlines. Super helpful.
Very. I mean, I like what you said about accountability, because in a way, by putting something out there, you are now holding yourself and making the public hold yourself accountable. But also, don't be afraid to pivot. Like, say you're going to launch something and then you're like, you don't. No one's really going to remember that either. But for yourself, having the deadline helps. I mean, this year, I, for the first time, did a launch calendar because I was getting really overwhelmed. Honestly, like, so what I did was in Excel, just like what you were saying, I did the 12 months of the year. And then in each box, I put like a couple of the, it's like idea volcano. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just put 2 main projects for each month.
Yes.
Yes. And
I
then,
love that.
the last time I think I did a pattern launch, I wrote out everything that I did for that launch. So now every time I launch something, I have like my, you know, SOP, which is like standard operating procedure for
Yep.
like how I do it. So my lead up has been like a 3-week lead up for launch, and that has helped streamline.
That's so good.
Yeah, and
I
that's
could
not
learn
even
a
like,
lot from you. You're
but that's
so
not even
organized.
branding. No,
That's
I mean,
so good.
I don't always stick to it either, but it's
But
there.
yeah, you definitely have to give yourself like actual deadlines and organization methods. And like, look at you guys. She uses Excel. I use a sketch pad. You know, I'm not super. I have kind of one daily list that I work with, kind of just, or like a weekly list, and then the month to month view. And then I have dates on my iPhone, like calendar, like major dates. But really, I don't write a ton down. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, and it's like giving yourself attainable goals too, right? Which is
Yep.
why I only put 2 big, or, you know, I don't even want to say major projects, but like 2 things a month, because I
Yep.
know there's going to be other things that come up. I have, you know, another business too, and
Yes.
too, so it's kind of like, you know, there, you got to give yourself some grace to
Yeah.
not meet those things too, but also
Yep.
an attainable goal is nice because it feels good to check something off.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. I
Okay.
love that.
I
I'm
saw a
looking at the
question,
list.
and I saw a question up here. So,
Oh, okay.
person said, sorry, we'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible.
I know. I keep forgetting.
So do you market more locally or online to a broader audience? I'm not familiar with our local maker community and have no clue how to even start, especially mid-pandemic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think at least applying to life right now, I think a lot of people are trying to support local businesses. So, like, for me, I always tag Minnesota as my location in the photo. If we're talking about Instagram, I use hashtags that pertain to Minnesota. If you're doing email marketing, you can target your local audience. So, like, you can actually change your settings to email people that are in your area. So, that could be a route to go. I don't like to, I mean, yeah, I know I have a lot of Minnesota followers, but like, I want everyone across the US to buy my product. I mean, it's people. People will buy your product no matter where they are. So that's why I try not to stick super like Minnesota. I mean, I know Made in Minnie is like slang for Minnesota, but I guess I try to keep my products pretty general so that anyone from any state could buy it. What do you think about it?
I mean, I think for you, Made in Minnie, like that's your brand story too. So
Yeah.
all because it's Minnesota doesn't mean it doesn't reach other people.
Yes.
And for me, I think it's a combo. So I've been trying to increase my online sales just from, you know, pandemic stuff and just in general, because still to this day, so I sell locally at a shop in town, in my town. And I've been trying to, and most of my physical product revenue comes from the shop. And I was talking to someone about this earlier, but as far as marketing and branding goes, if you're trying to get into a shop, basically look for shops that are in line with your brand aesthetic and your values, because ultimately the people that you want to buy your products, you want them to also be attracted to this store, you know? So that's a huge thing. And that has helped me. And I think why I've had a lot of success at this local shop, because the owners are artists themselves, and the way they curate the store, most of it's other handmade sellers, and it's all really like, I don't want to say luxury, but it's like higher end. Like people going into the shop know what they're going into. Like they know it's going to be a little more expensive because it's artisanal. You know, the aesthetic is something and outdoorsy and mountainy and whatever. I live in Colorado.
Totally.
So that's helpful as far as branding goes. And then online, you know, Pinterest has been really helpful. And just kind of, I think knowing your why more, and like digging into
Yeah.
my stories has really helped hone in on how I want to market too.
Yep, exactly. Those are all great suggestions. You definitely have to get off of Instagram too, I would say. Like, that's just one avenue, you guys. If Instagram shuts down, where are your customers coming from? So you gotta have other channels. And that's why email list is so important. Oh, my dad just said hi.
Aww.
Email list is so important. And Pinterest, like, oh, you guys get on Pinterest. And even I've seen a lot of makers doing like TikTok. I haven't done an IG reel. That's one of my goals, is to do an IG reel. Have you seen, like, basically, I've seen them a lot more this week for some reason. Maybe it just got more popular. I don't know.
I think they've been pushing it more, but I I didn't even figure out what TikTok was, so started one, and then I was like, I can't do this.
Well, now you might get into reels. I can totally see you doing it. Like, it's just cool because you can put music to, like, videos and talking. So I don't know. We'll play around with it, I'm sure. Just another avenue of showing, like, who you are, I think. That's the one thing, like, with IG stories, if you have a business, does it not let you tag a song?
I have not had that sticker. So I have an Instagram business and it won't come up. I've never gotten that.
I think it's because of, like, copyright reasons or something, or copyright infringement. They don't. So I'm like, I like that with reels, you can put some music to it, because music is, like, my thing. So yeah,
well,
just
that's
all
the next thing to try.
I know. That'll be my next challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to a couple of these struggles that everyone kind of commented in with.
Yes, there were a lot of through lines, I feel like, because I even, streamlined it a little bit and deleted the duplicate questions, but there were a lot of through lines.
Yes.
You choose what you want to talk about.
Okay. And you guys also comment, oh yeah, she said business accounts don't get music. Comment if you have questions too that we aren't covering.
Yes.
But so one thing that I feel like a lot of people ask about is content creation for posts, and just, like, what to talk about or what to take photos of. And so I always go back to, like, my 5 buckets. So, and I'm sure you have yours because I've seen your feed. So you choose 5 categories that you post about, or you can do 4 or whatever, but 5 is a good number. So for me, and I'm just starting to try to post more of myself. So, like, a picture of myself, or to talk about me as a maker or who I am, a picture of nature, a picture of a person wearing a product, like a model, and a picture of product in the packaging or in detail, and like coffee, or like a coffee type shot, because that's, like, one of my main things. So if you're having trouble with, like, what to post, start with your 5 buckets, and that'll make it easier for when you plan out your content. Another tip on that is, like, okay, we're all human. Not everyone is going to feel like taking photos, like, every day. So make it easier on yourself, and just, on a day that you feel super inspired, take a ton of different types of photos in different types of ways. So you might take a couple of photos outside on your front steps, or with, like, a backdrop out on your deck or something, and then go inside to a window lighting with good natural lighting, and do a different backdrop with a different product. And so you're going to have a bunch, at least probably 5 to 10 shots with different settings that you can use for the next couple weeks. That has helped me so much, because, like, we've all been there where, like, we're like, oh shoot, I don't have anything to post, or I haven't taken a new picture and I just don't feel like it. That's so normal, but it'll save you when you do that, like, when you're in that space, when you feel inspired on a day that you're just skipping around, pumped to take some photos, or go on an adventure. And if you don't feel inspired, just drop it for a bit and go do something fun. Go do something you love. Go hang out with people that inspire you, or do something positive. Listen to a podcast, all of that. Those are the kinds of things that can kind of get you back into that space. But I definitely think like taking photos in advance has helped me so much. And don't be afraid to reuse pictures. I go back like 3 years ago. I'm like, what picture can I re-edit? I have like 40,000 pictures on my phone. And so I'll just go back to the original because I have a different editing style and just re-edit it and talk about something else.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, and that's like, that's just Instagram too, like with the branding.
Oh, right. And I always revert back to that because I think so many people always think about Instagram, but yeah, that's just one channel, you know.
And I was gonna bounce off what you were saying about taking a bunch of photos, because I definitely do that too. Anytime I go on a hike or whatever, you bet that I have at least a skein of yarn and like 2 or 3 beanies like in my backpack.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know, and I'm not saying the whole hike I'm taking photos, but maybe it's like, oh my gosh, this spot's awesome. This is like some scenery that I haven't had before or whatever. And not every photo is going to make it on Instagram, or maybe I'm like, oh, well, those aren't Insta worthy, but maybe it's Pinterest worthy or whatever. So you can use them all, and it's like all of these through lines, and that's whatever your brand is, right? Like both of us are aligned with the outdoorsy adventure stuff, but maybe, and even within that, so many words that we like, so much stuff, so little time. But even within that, like your outdoorsy adventure is different than my outdoorsy adventure.
Yep.
And how are we nailing down that feel, and how do we represent our unique brands, but even though it's the same descriptors, right?
Yes, right. And that's going back to telling the stories that you cling to. You're going to talk about your dog. You're going to talk about Colorado, or, you know, living in that area. You're just like you said, your adventures to me are like these grand adventures. I'm like down at the lake by my house,
which is awesome.
That's the thing. It's still what you make. It's still, you're capturing what you're doing. And here's another one for you: jumping on your stories and showing it there too. And just, it can be a 5-second video. And it doesn't have to be of you always, but obviously, like they say, it's even better to show yourself, which we're all still learning and getting more used to. You might not always feeling like flipping the camera back on yourself, but if you don't, then just show what you're doing, or show some behind the scenes stuff that you're doing that day. It always feels like a lot more work, and I think we build it up in our heads to be like something bigger, and it's like people are clicking through 100 of them a day. Just throw it up there. They're going to probably relate to you in some way, or they're going to see something in your house that they might have or relate to, or they're going to see your dog and be like, what kind of dog is that? Or ask a question about something completely different.
Yeah.
So it's just all about showing like just who you are, your authenticity, and that just really is, that's your brand. Like it all relates back to, you're not just a business selling a product. And I think as so many people do, when they post a picture of a beanie, they want to say like, this is the beanie style, this is how much it is, and you know, they kind of keep it flat. And there's just a different way about that. You can talk about a story of what you did wearing the beanie, and chances are that's going to connect to the customer so much more. Or you can just tell like all the benefits about like your adventure, that you stayed warm and cozy, and just all the great things about what you did that day. And like, that's going to tell a story rather than just marketing the product. So I think that's the one thing that like, and it's fine to sometimes not feel like doing like a long caption or whatever. Like you're not always going to have that spirit of coming up with creative stories, but just know that like that's gonna take you further than just saying like, this is this beanie, this is how much it is, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's actually I shared it in my story a little bit ago, but there is a podcast I've been listening to called The Creator Club by Katie Steckley, and it's a really great listen, because before what I had was I had like my 5 main content categories, and then within each category I kind of had like subjects that I would talk about. So it's kind of like, it was really helpful with idea generation for captions and then keeping it on brand.
Yep.
But she also suggested, I want to say it was like a content matrix, where you have your categories and then you have the 3 main things are to educate, inspire, and educate, inspire, and there's one more and I totally forget what it is right now, but
Yeah.
it's a really good episode.
Okay.
But in another sense, I'll remember and I'll put it somewhere. But
Yeah.
but in another sense, basically it's just like, it's not saying that those are the only things that you are and that your brand is, but if you have those 3 to 5 main things, not only does it help make the content creation easier and on brand, it just it kind of gives yourself a focus and a theme. And it can be kind of different, but it's like, then I'm not talking about Aria every day, even though sometimes I feel like I talk about her a lot, or whatever,
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
yeah. And then like what you were saying with the taking photos of someone wearing a beanie, it's like, if we had the exact same basic fold over brim, like it could be the same exact beanie, right?
Yep.
But where you're wearing it is going to be a totally different vibe than where I'm wearing it. Or like, say it's like someone that lives in New York, or it's a city person wearing this beanie. The vibe is totally different. And it's like, that's branding, right? Like someone who's into the outdoors might buy from me versus someone who's like into the urban lifestyle is going to buy from someone that lives in the city, or the photos. So
exactly. And that's another thing that relates to just speaking to your audience. So like you can work backwards and say like, who am I speaking to? She's female. She's between 25 and 35. She likes the outdoors. She likes being active. She likes to be a little bit stylish and kind of girly with her beanie or with her headband. And she might be here because she wants to know about my maker journey, or she might just love like Minnesota and being outside and like cozy aesthetics and cool photography. So when I'm posting or when I'm talking to someone, I'm thinking about those things and who my audience is, like, and then that just almost creates a direct relation to like, they're going to be the one that responds to your photo. There's going to be people that scroll by, but when you tailor what you post to your audience, they're going to be the one that's going to respond, and they're going to be the one that acts when you have a call to action. Do you want them to double tap? Do you want them to comment? Do you want them to click the link in your bio? So that's who you're speaking to. And so if you're having trouble finding your audience, just write down who's your customer. Who are you talking to? And that should help you kind of with what you post.
Totally. Well, it kind of, so there's a question I saw up here. This is Mandy's, and I think it really riffs off of what you just said. So she says, most of my followers are other makers. How can I find customers to buy my products? I think this is like the question, because I struggle with it still. I don't know if you do, but we've talked about this a little bit, where you gear your stuff way more towards customers that are buying products than makers. But you go first.
Gosh, it's hard, but and I also think it's different for me. It might be because I don't sell patterns. And I think that's a big thing with my business that kind of sets me apart, is like, I'm not trying to market to makers as much because they're not buying, I've had other makers buy stuff from me, of course, but with pattern makers, you're trying to find other makers to buy your patterns. So you have to communicate more with them and market to them. But as far as finding customers, um, maybe outside of Instagram should be your focus. Because on Instagram, that's going to be saturated with makers. But if you go over to Pinterest and you do a couple Pinterest ads, you don't have to spend a lot of money. It's super, super easy. You can do $1 to $3 a day, and you can specifically target certain locations, certain ages, and certain interests. It's super awesome, you guys. You got to do Pinterest ads. That might get you more to your customer.
I've never tried the ads, but
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, none of my stuff has been paid ads yet.
Okay, yeah. And honestly, I can say that I see a direct return on my investment on Pinterest ads. Okay. I'll market to like a certain state, and I will get buyers from that state. And another thing is, if you have Shopify, you can see your conversion details on your purchase. So I can see how many times the person visited my site between a certain date and a certain date. And I can see how many times or what they added to their cart first, the first landing page they came to, and where they came from. So if it was like a Google search, a Pinterest ad, or Instagram. It's super cool to see that. So like, that's why I love Shopify. But does Squarespace have anything like that?
Yeah, you can do your analytics, and it tells you where your traffic came from and how many hits, or all the I need to dive deeper into it, honestly, but
oh yeah, no, I know. And there's some sites have like paid features, but Shopify, it is free. So I do love that. Yeah, let's see here.
Well, I think with all of this too, you can't even market to the right person until you know what your brand is and what your why is. And mine, I think, is still kind of changing, especially with the launch of this workbook. So my goals are still to sell finished products.
Okay.
But I have found such a joy in connecting with and like doing all these maker related things. So going back to Mandy's question, I think I've found that the majority of my sales of physical products are not necessarily coming from Pinterest or Instagram traffic. They might be coming more from Pinterest and then the local shops that I sell at.
Yes.
So I'm almost starting to shift my thinking into, with Instagram, if my goal is more to connect, then those might be the topics that I talk more about. But if it's someone who also is wanting to buy a beanie, because the through lines of the branding are like outdoorsy, adventures, whatever they are, they're still going to be interested and or want to know what's behind the scenes. You know, even though the majority of these people that are following me are makers, it will still apply to a person who's buying hats. And then as far as people buying my hats at like a local store, like seeing the pins, those are the ways to grab them. And I'm not worried about connecting with those people in the same way that I'm connecting with the makers, I guess. So I don't know. I'm kind of talking out loud.
No, I totally get it. Yes, I know. My brain is going into 50 directions right now. I agree. Yeah, it's tough because I think initially I was trying so hard to not be as connected to makers because I was like, I want to sell my product. And I was in a ton of boutiques, but I'm not doing wholesale anymore just because I just feel like as much as it's fun to be in shops, I want to sell my product without taking a huge discount. And it's hard. Like, you want the shop to still make money, but you have to give them a discount. And so it's just kind of that whole thing. It's like, there's billions of people. Like, why can't I just sell to people that are buying my product? And so you guys, like, don't start with your products priced too low either. Like, you're making this handmade. This is not, why can free people sell a beanie for $60? But you just sat there for an hour and think that you can't sell it for $60.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can. So just, that was definitely a mistake I made early on, was pricing my stuff too low. And you guys comment if you have questions or whatever. I know we're kind of going in a ton of different directions, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, thinking of all these things. But pricing, like, it's just so important that your margins are where they should be. You don't just come up with a price. There's a whole formula that goes into it. You're not just thinking like, what would my friend or my cousin pay for this?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely research a lot of that stuff too, when you're just starting out, because you don't want to come out too low. You can always have a sale. So, or you can always lower your price. It's way harder to like bump up your price.
Well, and to add to that, I feel like, don't you think branding is a huge part of your pricing too?
Yeah.
Because it's how you represent the product, and that goes into your brand. So if I am targeting like one of the markets that we have in town, we don't have very many. I live in a very small mountain community. One of the markets that we have, the way they market the market and the branding that they have, it's very kitschy, crafty, and not saying this is at all negative, but it's more like little nifty gifties and stocking stuffers and whatever.
Yep.
So all the items are very low priced. It's like you get a lot of like, grandma making coasters or something, and selling them at a very low price that's not valuing the time. But then someone else I'm just using coasters as an example, like a knit coaster or something, because you see really awesome ones, right? Yep. There's another shop, their aesthetic and branding is very high end and very luxury, very like interior design focused and stuff like that. Those handmade coasters are probably 4 to 5 times the cost of the ones that are at this crafty kitschy market, even though they're pretty much the same. But like the perception of the value of that item is so different because of branding.
So spot on. You're so smart. Seriously.
Trial and error.
But seriously, that is so true. Like, it's everything that goes into it. And that also goes with this workbook, is like, you have to have a story and you have to have the image with it. So like, someone can notice my logo and be like, oh, I love that. Like, that might be why someone buys your product. It's just that your logo was awesome and your website worked really well, and they fell in love with just the aesthetics of your photography and your website. It's so important to make like the first impression. And just going onto your website, like, you should have other people navigate it and make sure that they're finding the products easily, and just all of that. Like, and I know so many people are on Etsy. Photography is so important. Just clear, clean lighting. I know so many people are like, ask about how to keep things cohesive. And yeah, you can definitely have a filter that you use on your photos. Do you use like a preset, or do you just kind of,
I just started doing it pretty like within the last few months.
Yeah.
So if you scroll back on mine, you can tell when I started using it.
Yep. But that's the thing, that I looked at your feed and was analyzing it. And I feel like I can totally tell when that took your brand to the next level. And and I'm not saying you have to like spend a ton of money. Like, there's apps that you can create your own presets and then just apply that to every photo. And you're always going to have to edit the original photo a little bit differently. And that's where the planning app comes in. So once you edit your photo, you can put it into your planning app and make sure that it looks the same and has the same tones as your other pictures. That's what I do. So like, even before I post anything, I kind of use it as my cue, and I move around pictures that are ready to be posted and just see like, okay, I've got my 5 buckets. I've got an adventure photo, a picture of someone else wearing a beanie, a product shot, a picture of me, few and far between. I'm working on it. But, you know, so then you have your buckets, and then you can kind of use that to make your feed flow, and just keep, say, like a bright color, keep that in the same tone. So like keep your oranges and turquoises looking the same, or like your sky blue in the summer. It's kind of hard because that might be so bright, but just keeping it that same tone using the preset that you use.
Mm-hmm.
Or some people don't like super edited photos, and that's totally fine. You can have just a method of doing a little bit of contrast, a little bit of brightness, and a little bit of desaturation. You know, you can come up with your own little way of making it so it's cohesive for you. It doesn't have to be like a filter. Which layout app do you use? Oh, I use it's called UNUM. It's just a grid. A lot of people use Plan, PLANS. Is that what you use? Okay, yeah. Which I've downloaded a few of them, but I've just always used UNUM.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think they're all similar, and I don't, you know, some people use Plan to like post from or whatever. I don't. I purely use it to like toggle around and like play around with
visuals.
Yep. Well, I think that's a part of the consistency too, is not only can you check like the consistency of like the saturation or the brightness or whatever. Part of it too, it's like, oh, I have a picture of a person wearing the beanie, sitting, modeling it in the same pose. Or, oh, this hat is in the layout, the way the hat's laying is the same as this one. And you'll move it, and it makes it feel more cohesive. And that's
more interesting.
The number one way to figure out your cohesiveness is by planning it like that, I guess.
Yep, exactly. And I don't post from those apps either, just because I mean, hey, if that works for you, that's great. That'll free up probably a lot of time, but I think I just figure, I'll be on my phone for a quick moment anyways, so I'll just do it. Another tip, don't spend too long on captions, because that's a big time waster. And people are spending like 3 to 5 seconds on your little screen on the internet. So like, I used to take like a half hour trying to figure out what to say with the right little emojis. And, you know, as much as it is important to like put care and time, sometimes you might have a longer message, sometimes you won't, but just definitely don't sit there for too long, because it can get to the point where you get like frustrated.
Well,
I've experienced that.
Well, and mix it up too. It's like what you're saying with the buckets. It's like, oh, maybe today it's literally a quote or whatever. And then, oh, today you're going to tell a story. Today, maybe it's you're literally selling something or whatever. So,
exactly.
Too.
Yep. Sometimes you might want to be more deep. Sometimes you might want to keep it light. And that's just kind of the flow of life. You know,
or how you feel.
Yeah,
You're feeling.
Exactly.
But
I think, okay. One last thing. It's just all about what makes you unique, you guys. And don't say that there's nothing unique about you, because there definitely is. If you can't think of something, have someone else tell you what they think is unique about you. And I guarantee you'll get some ideas. You can dig deep, and your workbook is what is going to help them. I think really think about that. So,
yay!
The giveaway.
I know. Okay, I know. Can you believe it's already almost been an hour?
We're going to have to do this again.
We'll have a branding series.
Seriously. We got to do it again.
So, I'm very excited. So, if you already know this, I think most people watching probably do. We did a partnership giveaway for the workbook. So, giving away 3 copies of the workbook and 3 $100 gift cards to Naomi's branding and design services. So I did the random name picker thing, and I got 3 names. And I'm kind of excited for these people. So, drum roll. The first person, and we'll post this in our stories and feeds too, so you have a chance to redeem. The first person to win is Rear Dawn Squad.
Woo!
ReardonsQuad.
Oh,
First
congrats.
person.
Yay.
Second person is Court Wildson, which is crazy because she was actually a guest on one of these live.
No way.
Yes.
Congrats. That's
And
so awesome.
Yes. And the third person is By Mary Jannie. BYMaryJannie. Yay, Beard on Squat's here!
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Congrats.
Congrats to the winners.
That's so exciting.
Naomi and I will each send you DMs about how to claim your prizes. And then for those of you who, sorry, you didn't win, but the workbook is now live. I sent a secret sneaky email right before I came on the live.
You set it up.
On there. And I just hope you guys love it. If you have any questions ever, obviously DM us. We're happy to help. Obviously, we could talk about this for way longer. I can't believe that's already been an hour. We didn't even cover like a quarter of the topics that we had.
No, exactly. We'll do this again. I hope we do.
Totally.
Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you
Seriously.
so much. And we'll be saving this live onto IGTV, writing up a blog post. I also have a blog post currently up that has a lot of branding info in there as well. I don't know, Naomi, any last things to say?
I'm going to create a blog post too with some resources if you guys need it. And you guys can always DM me and ask me questions. You know, I'm an open book, and I'm just so happy that you guys came to listen. We just want you to be so happy and confident in your business journey and creating your brand. So let us know if you have more questions. I know we probably missed a lot of stuff, but thank you guys for being here, and we're so happy about it.
Yes, so happy. I know. Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you, and congrats to the winners.
Yeah, totally. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Bye.